Hello again. In today's video about linking words, we will take a look at linking words expressing contrast. When you want to use two opposing ideas in your text, you often use the word but. Today, I'll show you what other words and phrases you can use instead. Let us take a look at this simple sentence. I love Sydney, but it is often too hot for me there. How can we change it? Well, first of all, we can use those phrases instead. Although or even though. However. On the other hand. Although and even though can be used at the beginning of the sentence and in the middle of the sentence too. In both cases you'd have to use a full sentence afterwards. So, after using although or even though, your sentence needs to have at least a subject and a verb. Now, take a look at the changed sentence. Even though I love Sydney, it is often too hot for me there. I love Sydney, although it is often too hot for me there. As you can see, both, even though and although, can be put at the beginning of your sentences, before you present your contrasting ideas. You can also put them between those two contrasting ideas. Like, both loving Sydney, and not enjoying the weather. Notice that in both cases you need to have a full sentence there. However, and on the other hand are used between two contrasting ideas. So, you cannot put them before mentioning your contrasting ideas. And again, you'd have to put a whole sentence afterwards. Let's take a look at our changed sentence. I love Sydney, however, it is often too hot for me there. I love Sydney, on the other hand, it is often too hot for me there. What else can we use to express contrast? On the contrary. On the contrary is used to say that something is true, even though the opposite has been said. Your first part of the sentence needs to have a negation though, to make it work. Let's take a look at the example sentence, to see what I mean. Australia is not a cold country, on the contrary, it is quite hot. As you can see, there is a negation in the first part of the sentence. Notice the underlined, not. The writer states that, Australia is not a cold country. Quite the opposite. So, in this situation we can use, on the contrary. We can also use following words. Yet, nevertheless, and nonetheless. Yet, nevertheless and nonetheless are also put between two contrasting ideas, but they can be followed by a sentence, an adjective, or an adverb phrase. In this case, your sentence can be shorter. Let's take a look at our changed sentence. We can have a full sentence after those linking words like here. I love Sydney, yet, or, nonetheless it is often too hot for me there. Or, you can use an adjective, or an adverb phrase. Notice that in this case, your subject must be the same. So, we need to change our sentence, so that Sydney would be our subject here. Sydney is lovely, yet too hot. Sydney is lovely, nonetheless too hot. Another word we can use that can be followed by an adjective or adverb phrase is the word, albeit. Albeit is a very formal word, but you can use it in your essays too. In our example sentence, it would sound like that. Sydney is lovely, albeit too hot. And last, but not least, we can use the word, granted. You use granted when you admit that something is true, and then, present a contrastive idea. It is like saying, of course, but. Granted, Sydney is lovely, but it can definitely be too hot during summer there. So, instead of saying, "Of course Sydney is lovely, but it can definitely be too hot during summer there," we use the word granted. I hope you've learnt a lot today. Try to use these words in the text to make your essays better. Until next time.